All right. Well, welcome to Theology on Tap. We're so glad that you're with us this evening. Today we have a special guest who I like to see in the summertime because I love going out to the salt water in Watrous. He's the pastor of St. Anne's and a number of other parishes. So I would like to introduce to you Father Peter. Welcome, Father Peter.
Hello, Michael.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. And how are you?
I'm doing so well. I'm so happy to see your face because I usually only see it in the summertime.
Yeah, it's good to see you again. Well, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
So this year, our theme for Theology on Tap is to sort of explore vocations and talk a little bit about God's call for all of us. And so, Father Peter, I was hoping at the beginning, at the outset, we could, if you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your story. Like, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, well, Michael, you already started my introduction for me. My name is Father Peter Olisa, and I am a Nigerian priest, and I belong to the Archdiocese of Chicago. But sometime in 2016, my bishop sent me out on mission to Canada, and now I am with the Diocese of Saskatoon in Canada, Saskatchewan, and I am the pastor of 3 parishes. I live in Watrous, but I also take care of Imperial and Young. So that's me in a nutshell. And
Okay. So we'll get into the part about the vocation stuff. Now, maybe you could tell us a little bit about how God has called you in life and your response.
Yeah, I am glad you said it's a call from God because the priesthood is always a gift. It's always a gift. And as a gift, it is not just a job, a profession, a work. I think the term that kind of explains it is vocation, and we get a bit more about this in Hebrews chapter 5, verse 4. It says that no one takes the honor upon himself. People have to be called, just like Aaron was. And so my call started in a very small coastal village in the eastern part of Nigeria. There wasn't any dramatic thing that happened that actually made me to consider going into the seminary. The thing is, the coastal area I am from in Nigeria back then was a very difficult terrain. Life was difficult. People were struggling to survive. And the environment was really depressing, But in the midst of all those negative stuffs, there was one person that stood out. He didn't come from my area, never been to my area before, and yet there he was. And I'm talking about the priest. He comes in, and with the rest of us, he struggles to survive, but he struggles in a very different way, in a very selfless way. Because even though he himself was struggling, he also looks out for others and sometimes has to sacrifice his own comfort just to make sure that every other person is okay. So as a little boy growing up, seeing somebody that selfless, who would go hungry so that the people could eat, who would leave the comfort of his house and wade into the untarred and unpaved streets and try to help people out, that was it for me. I felt he was not just preaching the faith, he was living the faith. And so I said, I want to be somebody like this. So that was where the desire came from. The fact that the priest tried to live out in his life what he preached in the church.
Wow, what a wonderful example.
Yeah, it was really beautiful. It was wonderful. It was really wonderful. And I think people from my area can testify to that because the church has been an integral part of our society in trying to help the people, make the people better, help especially the disadvantaged. Okay, so it was a wonderful experience. And for me, that was the green light that this is who I wanted to be.
Okay, great. So how old were you when you went into the seminary?
Well, I was still very young. I went into the seminary when I was 12 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 12 years old, but the seminary at that point, I'm talking about going through what you call the high school, but because it's a seminary, the trainings are catered to forming this person into the image of the priest that the church wants them to become. So it was really challenging leaving home at that tender age, going into the seminary where you have to do things by yourself, learn to live by yourself. And it was challenging, but it was quite an experience,
Okay, and so you you did your high school there, and then sort of philosophy, and then theology, or what did
Yeah,
it?
when I was done with the high school, there is something it's called the apostolic work. It's the missionary work. So intermittently, you have to be sent away from the seminary to go into the parishes where you come in contact with the people, a kind of learning from the parish setting, right? So after my high school, I went for 1 year missionary experience. And after that, I had another 1 year of spiritual formation where you are taught about spirituality. I mean, you come in contact with the life of the saints and those things that can help you deepen your spiritual life and your relationship with God. So after the 1 year in the spiritual formation, then I went into philosophy. I read philosophy for 4 years, graduated, and then went for another 1 year pastoral experience in a parish. After that 1 year pastoral experience, then I went back to the seminary for my theology. It was at the end of theology, after 4 years of theology, that I was ordained a deacon and then subsequently ordained a priest.
Wow. Okay.
That's
Wonderful.
That was my journey, not as beautiful and as sweet as I'm trying to make it look. There were challenges along the path, but it's what it is. Life without challenges is a life that can never discover exactly, cannot appreciate life for what it is.
Right.
So
Of course, that's right.
challenges were there, but to God's glory, we surmounted, and we never really lost focus of where God wanted us to be.
So tell us, what is the most rewarding part about being a priest?
At the point I was ordained, I never really thought about this type of question because I felt things were self-evident, that a priest had to sacrifice himself and whatever the person in the society is going for, you just have to sacrifice them in order to be there to God and for the people. But now I think I can put it in better words. The rewarding part of the life of a priest, or my life as a priest, could be described in terms of relationship. And now this relationship is three ways. First of all, it's relationship with myself. I came to realize that I needed to know who I was in order for people to also appreciate me for what I was able to bring to the table. So the seminary got me to the point where I had to get in touch with myself. And getting in touch with myself opened up another aspect of that relationship, and that's my relationship with God. When I say that, I keep in mind what Augustine said in his Confessions about our hearts being restless until they rest in God. Even though I wanted this relationship with myself, I wanted to discover myself for what I am and for who I was, but the emptiness there was actually pointing to something outside of me, not in an ideal sense, not that God is not within me, he is within me, but I mean God as the other, as a person, and so that formed the foundation for the second tier of that relationship, trying to search for the face of God, to discover God, to know who he was. And then in my effort to understand God, I discovered that I was not actually the person that found God, it was God that found me. And all those while I was searching for him, he wasn't somewhere else. He was actually in me. He was with me, So having kind of established that relationship, I knew that relationship will lead to the other relationship. And that's the relationship I have with other people, my fellow human beings. Relationship with God must automatically and of necessity translate into relationship with my fellow human beings. You know, in 1 John chapter 4, verse 19, the word of God says, if you cannot love your fellow human being whom you can see, how can you say you love God? So that love, that relationship I discovered with God and with myself was able to form the basis, the foundation, a very strong foundation for my relationship with people. So as a priest, the rewarding part is that it is not a selfish relationship. It is not a relationship where I go in for what I'm going to get out of this relationship. It's a relationship that is self-sacrificial. And that's what it is.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that. I was thinking about your missionary experience and your formation as a priest. And did you ever think that your mission territory would be Canada?
Oh, no. No, you know, when you are a diocesan priest, you know you belong to a particular territory, right? So when you are then the priest for this diocese, you are expecting to do your work here in this diocese and be there all your life, moving from parish to parish and from institution to institution. But to be sent out on a mission, you know, it's really something else. So I wasn't looking forward. I wasn't expecting it. I never knew I would do that. But if I am here, then it's because God wants me here, and it's what it is.
Okay. Okay. So now, how many years have you been in Canada?
Well, I've been here for 5 years.
Okay. Did you ever see the snow like you did? You did this month?
Don't even get me started. Yeah, you know, I remember when I arrived in 2016. Before then, I never saw snow. I never knew what snow looked like. I only saw it in movies and all that, because in Nigeria, you know, it's a different thing altogether. So, but I was here in July, and by November, I woke up one morning, I was going for mass, and there's white substances everywhere. And then a friend said, that's snow. And it was chilly. It was really cold, you know. So that gave me it has an introduction to another aspect of life in Canada, because I arrived in summer. I thought everything was going to be sunny and warm and everything, you know. So it was a wake-up call. Yeah.
Well, now that the snow is all around us, it's Advent, and I thought that maybe are there things that happen in Advent that you love, or that you think things about Christmas that you look forward to that you'd like to share? What are some of the good things about Advent and Christmas?
Well, you know that Advent, from the Latin adventus, it means coming, right? It's about the coming of Christ. And when you look at the liturgy of the church during Advent, you could see that there is something going on. The church is trying to point us to the two comings of Christ. First of all, the second coming. For the first 2 weeks, you hear readings about the things that are going to happen and how the Son of Man is going to come in the clouds. This is the second coming. But for the last 2 weeks of Advent, it brings us back. God is not just some transcendent being. Actually, God has taken flesh and God is with us. So it brings us back to the reality of God breaking into history in the person of Christ. So in as much as the first 2 weeks makes me look forward to that second coming, the second 2 weeks brings me to the reality that God is a brother, God is a friend, God has a face, God has a human being, you know, going to that Christmas, you know. And the things that I love about Advent is the Advent wreath and candles, you know, that we light during the Advent, you know, because every day there is a prayer for the lighting of the candles. And that prayer says something about that journey that culminates at Christmas, the coming of Christ in the flesh. So it's a beautiful ceremony. I love Advent, and I'm looking forward to Christmas.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, I just, at this time of pandemic, it's so important to have something to look forward to, and also to anticipate. And the fact that Advent, it doesn't just start on Christmas, it's moving towards, it's a moving and preparing our hearts. I love that part of it. And really at this moment where a lot of us are isolated or socially distanced, or needing to do things that we don't normally do, something to look forward to is a real gift. And that's what Advent is. I think it's a little bit different this year than other years, but
oh yeah, well, COVID changes everything.
it really does. That's right. We'll have to get purple and pink masks for.
I look forward to that. Oh yeah.
Well, I'll ask you, Father Peter. Is there a message or anything you would like to tell any of the young adults that will be tuning in to watch this broadcast? Is there anything that any message you would want to relay to them?
Well, the message will always be the same. And one thing I have always known about being a youth, I was one myself, and I think I'm still a youth, is that it's a time you begin to ask some important questions, right? Important questions about meaning, about purpose of life, and all that, And the era we are living in is a very difficult era, because there are a lot of confusions out there. A lot of confusions, When people talk about censoring the social media, they are talking about just an aspect of the social media. Nobody talks about who comes to social media to get people confused about life's purposes and those questions that people ask all the time. So if there are people, the youth that are turning into this program, I think I will have to let them know that we are praying for everybody. Number one, we are praying for them. But number two, we are asking them to be careful, especially when they face these ultimate questions. When they face these ultimate questions, if we limit our answers to temporary and transient things, at the end of the day, they will be disappointing. To answer the deepest yearnings of the human heart, we need something more than the temporal, the ephemeral, the things that are passing. We need something that is permanent, something that is transcendent, in order to talk about meaning and purpose. And that is where God comes in. That is where God comes in. I was reading a book yesterday, and one of the questions, in an informal setting anyways, one of the questions that this person asked was, what are you going to say to God when you get to him? When you see him, what are you going to say to God? You going to say to God? And I thought about it for a minute, and I said, I will say two things to God. Number one, God, why is it that all this while that all these ideologies and people were making me to believe that you don't exist? Why didn't you just burst the clouds and come down to prove to me that you exist? And I think I already know the answer to that question. God will say to me, well, that is why it is called faith. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And look at Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1, the definition of faith. It is assurances of things not seen. You don't see them, but the fact that you don't see them don't mean they don't exist. And the second question, not a question, the second thing I will say to him is, well, I know that in Revelation chapter 22, we talked about heaven as the wedding feast of the Lamb. So God, I want to know, do you have some glasses of champagne? I want to drink champagne. So not to take away from the question you asked, I think the youth need to know that there is a battle going on there, a battle between light and darkness. It's just real. Hebrews chapter 13, verse 9, it says, do not be led astray by all sorts of strange doctrines. There are so many strange doctrines today. Nobody knows the truth. And one way to know the truth is to get closer to God, get closer to the church, because God has given us this truth of the faith in the church. So get close to the church and possibly become a priest. Yeah.
Well,
So
thank you so much for your time today. It's been so good to be with you in this season where we move towards the light, we
yeah,
can move towards God, and we can prepare for Christmas and celebrate, really, really celebrate the gifts that we've been given, and this incarnation
yeah,
of a real person in the person of Jesus that we're journeying towards. It's so good to celebrate that with you today and to have you on our Theology on Tap session. And so I want to thank you so much for being with us.
thank you, Michael.
And I want to wish you a blessed Advent, and I hope you have a very festive Christmas season.
Thank you, Michael. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me. And it's always good to have the opportunity and the platform to kind of express myself, how I feel about being a priest, and to encourage the young people coming up. Life in itself is difficult, but with God, with God, we do bravely. We do bravely. So thank you for having me, and do have a pleasant Christmas too.
Thank you so much. Okay, we'll see you again.
Bye, Michael.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Well, hi, thanks so much for tuning into our Theology on Tap this evening, our Advent version. We give our thanks to Father Peter, and we thank you for tuning in. And please stay tuned to this Theology on Tap Facebook page. And if you have people that you know that might be interested in our interviews, please let them know and encourage them to like our Facebook page. We hope that you have a great Advent, blessed Advent, and a very Merry Christmas. Okay, we'll see you next time.